Hello and welcome back to my workshop. Today I'm making part 2 in a series of 6 videos about craft markets, craft fairs, Christmas markets, call them what you like. Hopefully how to be successful, how to mistakes to avoid, lessons I've learned over the years that I've been doing them, that if I can pass those lessons on to you guys, then you don't have to make the mistakes yourselves, because some of them can be quite painful. If you've got any questions about the videos or any feedback, I'd appreciate it. If you put them in the comments section below, I'll try and get back to you as soon as I can, or include them in a later video if I can get them in time. So the first lesson that I've learnt, or the first lesson I had to learn, wasn't really anything I was doing wrong, but it was something that I had to learn, and I've classified it as wrong venue, wrong crowd, wrong day. So what I mean by that is different venues have got different crowds of people coming in, depending on what sort of events they normally hold in that venue, and you'll only really tell that out by going on Facebook groups and asking people, or doing a fair there and finding out for yourself. The first fair I ever did, I sold absolutely nothing. I talked to all the other fair holders at the fair, all the other stall holders, which is a really important thing to do. You can get so much information. Chances are they've been doing it, a lot of them have been doing it for years. They've got lots of information they can pass on to you, so talk to everybody you possibly can on the day. And one of the things I discovered was that, in fact, I wasn't alone, and almost nobody else had sold anything really on that day either, which helps because it means it's not personal. I thought it was my items or something I was doing wrong. Actually, it was just the venue. Now, talking to people who know the venue, it turns out that on a Sunday, most weeks, they have a car boot sale there, and it's a really popular car boot sale. The problem with the car boot crowd is that they're used to driving everything down to 50p in a pound, and that's just what they're used to. So they were coming to a market at the venue that they usually go to for car boot sales, and they didn't see why it should be any different. So when I was asking 15 or 20 pounds for a clock, which I had lovingly handmade, they weren't going to pay that sort of money. They weren't impressed, and they just weren't the right crowd. So it was the wrong venue, the wrong crowd, and as it turns out, also the wrong day, because again, talking to stall holders, certainly in the Isle of Man, the craft fairs really work on a Sunday, and the ones that are held on a Saturday just don't have the same success rate at all. I do cover later why I think that is, or certainly the experience that I've had. But yeah, so wrong crowd, wrong venue, wrong day, and that was the first lesson I had to learn, and it was a very painful one. I sold absolutely nothing, and that could have been the end for me, because as my first experience of a craft market, that was crushing, absolutely crushing. But I was greatly comforted by the fact that everybody else at that craft fair appeared to be in exactly the same boat as me. That was very comforting. So I said I'd cover Saturdays versus Sundays. I recently did a 2-day fair where I was in exactly the same venue for both the Saturday and the Sunday. Sold almost nothing on the Saturday and sold very well on the Sunday. Same venue, same stock, same pricing, same everything. And we actually had twice, if not 3 times as many people through the door on the Saturday, but made no sales. So again, talking to lots of different stall holders, they were all in exactly the same situation. Now, this venue was right in the centre of the main town here in the Isle of Man, Douglas, and what was happening was, on the Saturday, people were in town doing shopping with their families, and they saw some signs up in the street saying that there was a craft market, so they just came and browsed, basically had a thought, I'll come and have a look, which is great because we got so many people through the door, but unfortunately they weren't there to buy, they were just there to browse. And as I say, we had so many people through the door, I was so pleased with the footfall. Didn't sell hardly anything. So that's the Saturday crowd. Then and I wouldn't have gone back for the Sunday, except for the fact that when we signed up to say that we would do both days, and the organisation that I was doing the craft fair with was very strict about that you had to go on the Sunday as well. So I trudged back on the Sunday, expecting to sell nothing again, and sold lots on the Sunday. So the shops were closed, and it turns out it's a completely different crowd of people coming through. The Saturday crowd were the browsers. They were already in town, no harm, let's just go and have a quick look. Sunday crowd had made an effort to come to the craft market, and they were serious buyers, and they knew what they were. I recognised a lot of them from previous craft fairs, and they were serious buyers. So again, it's not just about the venue, because that was exactly the same venue both days. It's not just about me pricing things wrong, because I was pricing things exactly the same on both days, and it's not about having the wrong items, because it was exactly the same items on both days. But you just get different crowds on different days, and that's just something you're going to have to deal with. And by doing craft fairs at regular venues, you'll learn where the good crowds are, and when the best times are to do them. So valuable lesson learned. The time of year that you do a craft fair can make a huge difference. My first few craft fairs, craft markets, I sold almost nothing, including, as I said, my first one where I sold nothing, and I was really getting quite peeved with the whole thing. I was trying different venues, I was trying different stock, I was trying different pricing, nothing was shifting. And close to giving up, somebody said to me, you must try the Christmas markets. They are amazing, and specifically one only a couple of miles away from where I live. So I signed up. I thought, well, there's no harm, although it was £35 for the pitch. So I thought, well, I hope I do sell stuff. And I sold more in the first half an hour than all of my rest of my craft fairs put together, probably the first 10 minutes. And it just kept selling. I think it was a 5-6 hour fair, and we just kept selling for the entire day, and it was just an amazing experience. I then did, that was actually about the 4th Christmas market that I did. I'd done 3 others before, and the other 3 were exactly the same. Just sell, and talking to people who do this for on a regular basis. At Christmas, of course, you have got 6 children, cousins, whatever, that you need to buy, nephews, nieces, that you need to buy presents for, and you've got to buy something, and you've got a budget in mind. And if you can find something slightly unique, slightly different at a craft fair, then that's a good thing. But they're actively looking to spend money, whereas on an Easter market, you don't tend to, well, I don't know anybody who buys Easter presents for people, so they're just browsing, and they're just looking to see if there's something that catches their eye. Christmas is unique. People are looking to spend their money, and so different times of year, very different markets, very different crowds again. So that was an important lesson to learn. So more back along the lines of what this video is really supposed to be, which is mistakes I've made. So I realised that I was putting far too much stock out on the table. It was massively crowded, kind of to the extent where you couldn't really see what was going on, and it was all a bit mishmash and not laid out very well. So having too much stock on the table in one go is a big mistake. If you've got 6 clocks and they're all very similar, choose your favourite 2, or choose 2 that are as different as possible and put those up. And if somebody comes to the table and they show an interest and they're looking at the clocks, you say, oh, I've got another 4 under the table, bring them out. They might like the ones that are under the table, but by having all 6 on the table at the same time, it can really crowd the rest of the stock. Another mistake that I made, having too much of the same thing. So this first fair that I did, where I sold absolutely nothing, I posted a picture of my stall layout on Facebook, and my friends just all seemed to be talking about the clocks, and I thought, well, there's an awful lot more on my stall table than just clocks. But actually looking at the picture afterwards, it was clocks, and you couldn't really see the other stuff. So not having enough variety, that was definitely a mistake that I made early on, and combined with putting too much on the table, it crowded everything else out. Now, I don't want to cover too much about pricing, because I've got a separate video. Pricing is so important that I'm making a specific video just on pricing. But I will just briefly touch on the fact that one of the major mistakes that I made at the beginning was around pricing. So I overpriced stuff because I priced it based on what I thought it was worth, which is irrelevant. People will only pay the price that they think it's worth. I also didn't have enough variety of pricing. It was all relatively middle of the road pricing, and so I didn't have enough cheap items there. Somebody will come to your stall to look at a cheap item, and while they're handling the cheap item, you can see them looking around the rest of the stall, and then suddenly they're buying 2 or 3 different things, some of which are quite expensive, but it was the cheap item and the cheap price that brought them to your table. So make sure you've got a good variety of prices. That was definitely a mistake that I made, was everything was just kind of middle of the road. And again, while I'm talking about pricing, I don't want to spoil the individual video, but make sure that your pricing is clear. I bought what I thought was fun. They were sort of yellow, what I would call explosion, like in a comic book where somebody says kapow, and they were labels that were like an explosion. They were yellow and they had a red line around the outside, and I thought they were really attention grabbing, and I'd seen other people using them as well. But actually, looking at some of the pictures that I'd taken of my stall, they weren't particularly classy. And some, if I'm trying to charge somebody a decent amount of money for one of my planters, the label, needs to be classy as well. So I've now gone to, I can't remember what they're called now, but the little white rectangular card with a string attached. And they're much more classy, and looking at the pictures of my stall these days, it's much less in your face and kapow. Make sure that your pricing is clear. And for me, again, pricing, I don't want to talk too much about pricing, but another pricing is make sure your pricing is clear, because I've seen stalls where none of the items are priced, and then there's a A4 page with a price list on it. So people have got to look for the item that they want. They've then got to look on the price list, look for where it is, work out what the description of the item is. You don't want people any excuse for them to walk away, they'll walk away. So make sure your pricing is clear. And anyway, as I say, I've got a whole separate video on pricing. So I think that's number 4 or 5. So when that comes out, be sure to have a look at that if you're interested in doing a craft market. One of the most difficult things to judge, which I'm sure I'm still not getting right really, is knowing how much to engage with people. So the 2 different approaches are: you sit behind your stall and people come up to the stall, you don't talk to them, you don't engage with them because you don't want to frighten them off. They have a look and then they might move on. The other one that I've seen, the last fair I was at, the person next to us, anytime anybody came remotely near the stall, they were cracking jokes with them, and for me personally it was a massive put off, and that would make me avoid a stall. So it's a really tricky one to know. What I tend to do now is if there's lots of people coming past the stall, I'll be standing up rather than sitting down. I will look at the people, look at their eyes, so that when they look up from the table, then I make eye contact with them and I smile. And if they look like they're showing interest in an item, I don't jump straight on them, but you just got to try and read their body language. Are they really interested? Is there something you can tell them that will give them more information? So they pick up a clock. I've got another 4 of those under the table if you're interested in looking at different wood patterns. One that I love, which is, because that's quite a hard sell, or not hard sell, but it is a sell, but one that I quite like that seems to not get in people's faces, is that everything I make is out of reclaimed wood. And I do have big signs up saying that, but not everybody reads every sign. So they'll be feeling the wood on a particular item, and I say it's all made from reclaimed wood, so that's good, isn't it? Because it stops it from going to the tip. Now, I'm not trying to sell them anything there, and I'm not trying to part them with their money, but it's a useful piece of information. And these days, obviously, reclaimed wood recycling is a big subject, so that will quite often get people engaged. And I don't think anybody's been scared off my stall. Whereas if I made a comment about pricing or something like that, some people are a bit put off by that, and they'll scuttle off onto another stall. So that's a really tricky one. And as I say, I haven't nailed that one yet, but I'm getting better and better every fair that I do. I think that's enough for today. I don't like to talk about mistakes too much, but each person has to. What I would say is learn from your mistakes. As long as you learn from your mistakes, then there's no bad mistakes to make. If you sell nothing, don't treat it as a failure. try and work out why you didn't sell anything, and mainly talk to the other stall holders, because they will know the venue, they'll know the crowd. That if they tell you that they haven't sold anything either, that can make you feel better. And even if you have a good day, still talk to everybody. Talk to as many people as you can. I know I got that advice. I was given that piece of advice, and I sort of thought, oh, that's not like me. I don't go around talking to people. But all of you stall holders are all there for the same reason. You've got a common interest. Everybody likes to talk about their stall, go and look at their stuff and say, oh, this is really nice, engage with them, and they will give you information, and it will be very useful information because they've been around the block and they know what they're talking about. So anyway, I hope that's been some useful information in there. If you've got any questions, any comments, please leave them below. If you've got time to like the video, that would be amazing. If you've got time to subscribe to the channel, fantastic. I'm slowly getting my numbers up, and it makes it more and more worth my while, and helps me to see what people like. And yeah, so thank you for watching, and until next time, stay safe.